Hey family, it's Tasha MAMABEAR Prepping. So welcome to the channel. Welcome back to the channel where we just talk about emergency preparedness, food preservation, just basically what me and my family are doing for emergencies and to prepare for different crises that might come our way, and hopefully give you some tips and tricks and ideas for yourself that you can use for your family. So today I'm going to bring you 30 cheap foods. These are the cheapest of the cheap when it comes to making your dollar stretch. Some of them not only cheap, but very, very versatile and making all sorts of different meals. So they're very what I call staples, basics, must-have foods. But today they are cheap still, okay? And so I think that's important because we're trying to make our dollar stretch. We're trying to preserve more food, preserve stuff. And so I'm going to give you my top 30. So I'm going to give me a highlighter so I can keep track of what I'm going to go over with you. So first thing is potatoes. Potatoes are one of my favorite staples. I have a couple of them, but to me, this is a filler staple, right? There's a difference between a staple. It's kind of a basic thing. It's very versatile. And then there's a difference between that and then one that is what I call a filler, meaning it is a food that is very, very filling. It doesn't take that much to fill bellies, to make people feel good and feel like they are getting a meal. And potatoes is one. I like potatoes too because you can get it all types of ways. You can get canned potatoes. You can get a bag of potatoes. You can grow potatoes. You can get hash browns, right? Different types of frozen potatoes. And so potatoes are just very, very filling and delicious. Also, potato flakes. There's just a ton of ways to get potatoes in your preps and for your long-term food storage. So potatoes has made the list. Next one I have is peanut butter. Now, peanut butter at times can be expensive. And I do expect this one possibly to be one that will continue to rise, right? But stick with the basics, stick with the generic. You don't have to get Jiffy. You don't have to get these big name stuff, okay? I'm a huge, huge fan of getting generic foods, okay? But get your peanut butter, get your bigger jars. Those tend to be dollar-wise better. But peanut butter, super filling, high protein, very good source. Next thing I have is pastas. Again, especially when you find them on sale, they go on sale often, okay? And I never pay more than $1 for a package of pasta, okay? And oftentimes you wait for a sale, and even now with inflation, you can still get a package of pasta for cheaper. Now, because of inflation, you do, in my opinion, want to wait for the deals. And what's crazy is, when it does go on sale, I notice that pasta typically goes on sale in all the different stores, right? Like even if I go to Target, it will be on sale if it's on sale at, let's say, Safeway, right? So pastas, super filling, super easy. The only negative or downside I would say to preparedness and overall is that you have to boil them, which then takes water, okay? So you have to have water to be able to cook it. I know a lot of people cook it and then dehydrate it. There's different things that you can do. If you have a freeze dryer, you can do that as well. Put it in soups and stews and stuff and then freeze dry it. But I like just old-fashioned raw pasta. I vac seal it, put it away for a rainy day, but it can go far and it can stretch when you're doing a one pot meal where you're trying to feed a lot of people. Again, it is a filler staple for me because it doesn't take that much of it to make to just add to any kind of pot. Same with potatoes, right? Next thing I have is rice. Now, rice is tricky. If you're in the market for rice, you're still trying to get rice for your long-term stores, you're still trying to do this, you need to do it now because rice is going to increase. Rice is going to be an issue. Rice has had an increase, inflation increase in different time periods of life, right? 2005, 2008, during that whole time period, rice went through the roof, right? So expect rice as we move forward with these conflicts, especially when rice comes from China, rice comes from India, we have a little bit of rice production in our country, but a lot of rice comes out of country. So pay attention to rice prices. Continue to get your rice now before it gets to a point where you can't get it or you're going to get priced out of it. Same goes for my next one, which is beans. Certain beans I've noticed have gone through the roof. Like pinto beans, you would think is just a basic bean. That has gone through the roof. Even the canned refried beans hurt my soul. I'm You know, when I go to Walmart and I see a can of that for $1.58, that hurts my soul, right? I wait until I can get that for under $1, and then I stock up on cans of refried beans, right? So same thing, cans of beans are decent. Bagged beans, the other varieties are decent and are cheap. So get those while you can and get them stored. They store forever. They will last you forever. You'll always have them. And it's a staple and it's a filler. You've got to have this. Whole cultures live off of rice and beans alone, right? Because it's filling. You can make a lot of it for a lot of people. And it's delicious, obviously, okay? Next thing I have is hot cereals. You know, you can get your cereals if, again, you wait for a sale and you get your box cereals when it's sale. That's when I like to get my cereals. But if we're talking about overall cheap most of the time, all the time type of situation, that's your oats, that's your oatmeal, your oats, your farina, your, you know, cream of wheat. That stuff is cheap, okay? Cheaper. So get that stuff. Don't sleep on that stuff. You know, a hot bowl of that is delicious. Not only is it easy to make during grid down, but it's cheap, and it's a cheap way to feed your kids in the morning, feed your family, okay? Next thing I have is bread. Bread, again, inflation, right? It's going through the roof. Hurts my soul paying more than $2 for a loaf of bread. What I would suggest is continue to get bread. If you have the space in your freezer, continue to always have a couple loaves in the freezer. But learn to make bread. Get the products that you need to make bread. Start practicing now how to make bread, how to make sandwich bread, how to make a loaf of bread that you would go with a super stew, maybe some baguettes. Learn how to do that stuff, right? That's an easy learning, right? That it doesn't take that much. There's a little bit of a curve because some people just are not naturally good at baking. But I'm telling you, bread is easy. It doesn't take that many ingredients, and it's worth it. And it's going to make you feel good knowing that you can provide for your family if that goes away and you can't get it, okay? But it is a fairly cheap item. Not only bread, but bagels, okay? Everything that's in that aisle. English muffins, I wait till they're on sale. And I get them like 2 for $4 or 2 for $3, right? And you get big rolls of them. If your family can't eat them fast enough, throw one in the freezer. Again, if you have room, okay? If you don't have room, I get it, okay? But figure that out, okay? Sometimes you, depending on what your family eats, different sandwiches, different things that they use the bread for, you're able to, you know, rotate. Okay, I'm going to buy bread this week. I'm going to buy English muffins this week, whatever, right? And then English muffins can be made into breakfast sandwiches or regular sandwiches. English muffin with some lunch meat and some cheese and stuff like that is good. Toasted up, that's delicious, right? So maybe it's you're rotating, okay? But get this cheaper breads. Next thing I have is chicken, specifically dark meat chicken. Thighs, legs, that stuff tends to be much, much cheaper than, like, say, a big thing of chicken breast. Now, if you can get meat on sale, period, then cool, get all of it. But specifically, if we're talking about cheap foods, cheaper foods, thighs, chicken thighs and legs are delicious. You throw those in the crock pot, baby, with a little bit of garlic, some soy sauce, some Worcestershire, a little bit of broth. Just let that cook down, right? That's delicious, okay? Just let that cook down for 4 hours, be falling apart. Put that over some mashed potatoes or some rice. Delicious, okay? Then there's 1,001 recipes that you can do crock pot with just throwing in some chicken. But thighs, baby, you can get big packets of thighs and they are cheap. They are a good price, okay? If we're still on the thing, my next thing is staying on par with meats. Canned chicken, still good. Now, for you preppers, right, that buy the big, you know what I'm talking about, the big tube up, and it's like 5 or 6 cans of canned chicken, and you get that at Walmart. You know, that used to be fairly cheap, right? And that was like the way to go. That, you know, I don't know if they peep game or whatever, but that has gone up significantly, the price of that stack of canned chicken, right? So again, I go for generic, and I go for waiting for the sale to go down a little bit. And I do get the packs because the packs do tend to be better. And I go where I know that I can get the best deal for that, right? So I'm not going to my bougie places like Safeway, Fred Meyer, stuff like that to get that. I'm going to places like Walmart for that, right? I'm going to places like There was something I just thought of, another store. Basically, just I'm not going to all stores to get that product. I'm getting generic, and I'm getting the cheapest stores that I can possibly get the lowest price for that, okay? This is an oldie but goodie, mac and cheese. You know, I hate to say it. Now, that cheese will start to get old, you know, that cheese pack. So you've got to preserve that. You've got to either put it in a jar or merely just put it in a vac seal bag with the cheese packet. Make sure you put a slit in the cheese packet so that, you know, the air can get to that too, and vac seal it up and put it away. Mac and cheese is still holding firm. I'm not talking about that fancy Velveeta cheese and shells, the 3-pack. You know, I used to get that a lot. You know, I'm a fan of that, but price-wise, you know, your old-fashioned box of mac and cheese. Now, I know some of you are like just a little too bougie for that. You can't do it, right? But with some salt and pepper, and if you've got a little butter, a little milk, it's delicious, okay? Listen, when we talk about cheap foods, you know, we've been accustomed to getting the nice of the nice. I mean, we just have as a society, as a people, right? But don't sleep on it. You know, I grew up on Section 8. I still remember living on, you know, 5 different things. And that's what I ate, right? We ate the same dinners over and over and over, right? There was no you know, TikTok that could show all these different recipes, and Pinterest, right? It was very basic, clean eating, regular food, right? You know, the lunch, you know, I was eating a lot of ramen. I was eating a lot of bologna sandwiches, right? Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You know, you can't, first of all, if you grew up like that, you cannot forget that, okay? And then if you didn't, try some of these things. You got to, because this is cheap. Macaroni and cheese, man, that's still cheap, okay? That's still a viable option. Throw some hot dogs up in there. You want to get a little fancier, some sausage, okay? Delicious. Maybe you want to get fancier, make the mac and cheese, put some sausage in it, put it in a pan, sprinkle it with some cheese, get the cheese all crusty and burn on the top, and then eat it. Listen, you've got to get it together, okay? So mac and cheese, don't sleep on it. I know people put tuna fish in mac and cheese, okay? Listen, figure out this stuff and what you can tolerate and what you can eat, because times are rough. People are starving, okay? The next thing I have is north sides. All the little sides that you can get in the pasta section, that's either pasta, rice, but the different Knorr sides, they're super, super cheap, usually, you know, 80 cents, right? And it's a nice little side. They cook up quick. They don't need a lot of water typically to make them. That's a plus. Very easy to vac seal. I literally just slice them, fold it down, put it in a bag, vac seal it, done, right? Knorr sides, do not sleep on Knorr sides. And they got rice ones, pasta ones. They're delicious. They're easy, already seasoned, already have the contents of whatever it is, pasta, rice, whatever. Too easy. Does not get any easier. Quick to cook too, so it's not like you're cooking forever. So one of my favorites. Also, you know, cook with broth outside of water, right? You have other options, and because it doesn't take that much to make those types of meals, super easy, right? Hamburger helper type sides, super easy, right? Doesn't take a lot, super fast to eat. And a lot of them, they have the pasta, they have the seasoning, you just add meat. You can add meat if you have it canned form, or you have pressure canned some, or you have fresh, great. But at the end of the day, you don't have to have the meat. You just cook it, okay? And you have the pasta and you have the seasoning, okay? So Knorr sides, hamburger helper type sides, different sides, pasta and rice sides that are super easy and fast to make. Next thing I have is top ramen or ramen. Really, you know, it's hard to get top ramen these days. Just ramen, whatever flavor, whatever kind your family will eat. You can get the cup of noodles are nice to have that option, but I want to get those all the time. But ramen, you know, ramen is super easy, boils fast. Typically you can make it with just some hot water that you had in a thermos. Ramen is amazing, and you can add so much to it. It's so versatile in what you can make out of a package of ramen. And a lot of people look down on ramen. A lot of people look down on that packet. Baby, you don't have to use the whole packet. Use half the packet and then use the other half to season some rice later, or to season some beans later, okay? So don't sleep on that packet, right? Use the noodles. Cook up the noodles, put some butter, salt, and pepper in those noodles and eat that, and use the packet for seasoning other foods, okay? Do not sleep on ramen, okay? Cannot stress that enough. Do not sleep on ramen. It is a must. You can take a thing of ramen and have lots of water and make a delicious, where it's more of a broth type soup. Somebody's sick, and then you have a little bit of ramen. Like, you can make a big, big pot of soup on a package of ramen. Obviously, you're having water that you're using, you're having broth, but don't sleep on that, baby. Do absolutely not. Next thing I have is eggs. Now, we've gone up and down with some egg controversy this year, right? Prices of milk and eggs and things like that. You had that, bird flu that was going around with the birds, lots of birds going down. So eggs was a problem. I think that we're going to continue to have those problems as we move forward with life, with the agenda of taking away meat, taking away birds and things like that. And so get your eggs, right? Freeze dry them, buy them freeze dried, buy them fresh. But if we're talking about cheap foods from the store, get your eggs. Delicious, filling, protein, excellent course. If you can get your other options of it, like we just got chickens, get your other options going if you can. But think about preparedness, think about eggs. Eggs needs to be part of that menu planning, that diet planning, that self-sufficiency plan, okay? Next thing I have is yogurt. You're just talking about snacks. You're just talking about foods that are cheap. You can get yogurt, goes on sale all the time. You can get big boxes of the same kind if you want. But you can't go wrong with yogurt. Yogurt is fairly, now it's not super filling, but it's a versatile. It's another breakfast item. It could be a snack. Stuff can be added to it, dried fruits, dried nuts. So it has an ability to be pretty versatile with a lot of things. Also, yogurts, especially plain yogurt, is in a lot of dishes, right? A lot of marinades and different things like that. So don't sleep on yogurt. Yogurt tends to be cheap. And especially if your kids eat it, it's a great snack. Next thing I have is your lettuces and your spinach. Again, you can go to the store, you can get a big bag of it or a big container of it. It keeps you with having your nice green leafy options. Again, lettuce is very easy to grow. So if you're starting to grow stuff, grow lettuce, right? Different kale, lettuce, all this stuff. That stuff's really easy to grow, okay? And it's easy to grow indoors too if you're not trying to grow outdoors or you can't grow outdoors. But your lettuce, your head of lettuce, your stuff that's already chopped up, ready to go, that stuff is fairly cheap. I'm not talking about your fancy salads that are already put together for you, or those little salad kits. Don't get that stuff. I'm just talking about regular old lettuce, regular old mixed greens. You can get in a big container for like $2 or a big bag. Containers are better just if you want it to last a little bit longer. But don't sleep on lettuce. Lettuce, super cheap. Next thing I have is your ready-to-eat meals. I was going to get an example, but there's all types of different ready-to-eat sides, right? It's like beef stew, different stuff with like, not necessarily TV dinners. This is shelf-ready, ready-to-eat foods. Definite thing that you want to have because it's easy. It is high in sodium, but it's so easy because these packages are great for MREs. Fantastic for MREs because they're easy to eat either cold, or they're easy to just throw in a bag with some water and do some immersion heating type situation, or just putting them out by themselves out in the sun. They will heat fast and they're nice and easy. Okay, so for a ready to eat option, these are great. Maybe I'll take a picture and I'll try to put it in the video right here. Okay, next thing I have is onions. Onions to me, okay, so I talked about you have your filler foods, your basics, your staples, and those are fillers. Then you have your enhancers, your stuff like garlic and onions and peppers. That stuff is important. Your herbs, the extras that you add. And my go-tos is peppers, onions, and garlic. Onions and garlic almost in everything, okay? So onions is on my list. They stay fairly cheap. And they'll go, one onion is versatile and will go pretty far, okay? So get you some onions, figure out which ones you like the most. I like scallions, I like the yellow onion, and I like purple onions, right? But onion to me is an onion, right? So really at the end of the day, whatever is the cheapest, but they tend to be cheap, okay? Maybe not the scallion ones, but anyway. Next thing I have is broth. Again, this is important. I stock a lot of broth because broth to me is important. I use it a lot in just everyday cooking, but it's important for grid down and giving you an option to save some of your water that you have, right? If you have broth, you're going to be able to use that in your recipes, and then maybe not be using as much water that you would be using. And so that is helpful for, especially if you are trying to ration your water, be careful with your water, make it last as long as possible. Broth is huge. I love broth for sickness, for people that are sick. Heating up some broth, right? It's just super, super important. Preparedness item, food item that I think is super important to have, not only in your everyday kitchen, but for your long-term storage, and to keep and have broth. Okay, super important. Don't sleep on broth. And if you're not really a broth user, get you some and just start using it more when you have a recipe that asks for water. And if it makes sense to use that, right? It's, you know, you're trying to cook up some pasta in this recipe, or you're trying to cook up some potatoes in this recipe. It just gives such a earthy flavor that's just super, super delicious. So if you're getting into cooking more, get into broth, get you some broths. And I use chicken broth more than anything, but there's beef broth that I use. You know, you can get the different broths, and you can get broths or you can get stock. To me, same thing. It is a little different, but to me, it's the same thing when we're talking about cooking and food and stuff, okay? One thing I have on my list is diced tomatoes. Do not sleep on diced tomatoes. In so many recipes, it's an easy thing to add to a one-pot meal. You're making a soup, you're making a stew. Adding a can, again, it adds liquid to your one-pot thing. It's delicious. My favorite is Rotel, or a tomato and pepper type mix. I like Rotel. Rotel has its times where it fluctuates. You know, a can of Rotel, $1.20, $1.30, something like that. But don't get Rotel. Get the generic version. You can get the generic version for like 70, 80 cents, 90 cents. Get that. It's under $1, right? I try not to pay more than $1 for anything that's in a can, especially when it's like a canned vegetable, canned fruit, canned anything. What my magic number is under $1, okay? The next thing I have is sugar. Next thing after that is flour. Obviously, those are just basic baking materials, basic flavoring, cheap still. Get those and keep them because they'll last forever, okay? So make sure you have lots of flour. Make sure that you have sugar, okay? Next thing I have is minced garlic. So garlic, I just talked about enhancers. The cheapest way to get garlic, in my opinion, is there's a lot of fancy stuff. You can get the stuff that's already cloved. If you're able to get a huge bag of already shelled, right, garlic, it's already peeled, it's ready to go, nice cloves. If you can get something like that in a large form from like Costco, Sam's Club, something like that, and then you bring it home and preserve it yourself in some honey or some oil, perfect, okay? That money that it costs to get that big bag, if you can preserve it so that you can then use it, that is the best. That is a good way to spend your money, I guess you could say, right? If you cannot do that though, the cheapest thing to do is just go and get the large jar. I don't know, it's like a 20-ounce jar of minced garlic. You can get that from anywhere from $3 to $5. Don't pay more than $5, but that will last you much, much longer in your cooking endeavors. Yes, is it nice to have fresh garlic? Absolutely. So grow some, right? Get some from the store, organic garlic, peel it and plant it, baby. I mean, get it going, right? If you know you like that, do that. And you can do that on your windowsill, in your home, on a shelf, right? Start growing you some garlic and see, so that you can learn to cultivate that and learn how to make your own, enhancer for food, okay? Not everybody's fancy and is like, okay, I'm going to grow basil and I'm going to grow, and a lot of people don't really know how to cook with fresh herbs, and that's not really their thing, but you use onions, you use garlic, right? So plant those things, right? But if you're trying to save money, get the big mince thing, because a little scoop of that or something of that is just lasts longer for cooking when you're cooking with garlic opposed to fresh. I don't know about you too. When I'm using fresh, I like to use more. I get pretty heavy handed with it, and so minced garlic keeps me more honest. Okay, it makes it last a lot longer. Next thing I have on here is tortillas. Don't sleep on tortillas, man. That's a very easy add. I say if you have a soup, a stew, rice and beans, whatever it is you have, you throw in some warm tortillas with that. Super filling, okay? Filling bellies. And it's good, and they're versatile. You can make wraps and sandwiches and rolls and all types of stuff with them, with breakfast stuff, with lunch stuff, with dinner stuff, right? It doesn't really matter, but there's a ton of stuff that you can put in tortillas and heat them up and eat or make dishes out of or whatever. That is a must-have prep. That is fairly cheap. Now, I've seen tortillas over the years get to a price that, I don't really want to pay for. But go to, an ethnic store, right? Go to the places where you can get this. If you have a farmer's market and you have somebody who's making fresh tortillas and selling those or whatever, get those, okay? Look for your sales, but tortillas, don't sleep on them. Get them, must have, and they're cheap. Next thing I have is pork meats or processed meats, but we're going to talk about pork for a minute. So when you talk about pork, sometimes you can get a pork butt on sale or something like that, but I'm talking about processed meats. I'm talking about sausage links, that are like the big ones that are like the horseshoe size. I'm talking about hot dogs, big sausage links. I'm not talking about like breakfast sausage links, right? And then I'm talking about ground, meat rolls. So the ground sausage rolls. This goes for turkey too. The ground turkey rolls, the ground chicken rolls, whatever. Those. And you wait for a sale, okay? Because those can be quite expensive. Those, if you can walk into a store and those could be $5 a piece. That's not when you're getting these, baby. You're getting those when they're go on sale, 2 for $5, 2 for $7. Get those and then stock up on them and get them. Those go on sale all the time. You just have to be paying attention to your flyers, be paying attention so that you can get yours when those go on sale, okay? Sometimes you're blessed 2 for $4. I mean, you just got to really pay attention to stuff. But those rolled stuff, I'm a huge fan of the rolled sausage, okay? I love that. I love having that in my freezer. Love getting that on my shelf stable stuff, right? Pressurized canned ground sausage. Got to have it. We eat a lot of that, but that is cheap. Wait for the sales for the rolls. But the sausage, the hot dogs, that's cheap meat that you can literally take 2 hot dogs, chop them up really small, add that to something, and that's that extra little kick of protein, okay? You talk about Great Depression meals, a lot of that stuff that she cooked was hot dogs or a sausage, right? It was something basic. Or she would take, you would take ground, let's say that roll, but you would cut that roll that's a pound roll, cut it in 3, okay? And when you're rationing, you're trying to make your food, nobody says that you have to cook and have a whole pound of meat in your meal. Nobody said that. So get that roll, cut it in half, then put it in freezer bags and freeze it that way, okay? Or can it in your jars and say, hey, when I open a pint-sized jar, which is about a pound of ground meat processed, just say you're only going to use half of it and you're going to use the other half in the dinner, okay? And you're going to use lunch, dinner, or the next day, whatever it is, okay? Make it stretch. Nobody said that you have to do what is the norm, okay? Or what the recipe calls for. Half it, half the meat, okay? It's still going to taste good, okay? But that is a cheap, that's a cheap way of doing it. Okay, next thing I have is canned fruits. Even your fruit cups, if you wait and have those on sale, those are cheap, okay? So get those. Those are great for snacks for kids. But canned fruit is good. It's a good way of getting fruit. Frozen fruit is a no-no. That's super expensive. If you can get freeze-dried fruit on your shelves for long term, do that. If you can grow it, do that. If you can still buy it fresh, do that. But as we know today, as it stands, you buy fruit and that stuff is a very quick turnover in regards to overall fruit is going bad within 24 hours. So it's almost like you got to get it and you either got to eat it in 24 hours or you got to process it, meaning dehydrate it or put in a recipe or whatever you're going to do. Okay. Next thing I have is frozen vegetables, frozen and canned vegetables, right? Again, super big fan as long as it's under $1. I really like veggies if they're around 50, 60 cents. That's like my magic number. And then get a flat of them. When you buy them, get a flat. Get another flat, right? And just do that and start stacking your flats of canned and canned vegetables. And then your frozen vegetables are super, super cheap. The same, super, super cheap, okay? Don't get that fancy stuff that has like 10 different vegetables in it. It's a melody and da-da-da. No, baby. We're doing clean eating, doing basic cleaning. Get you your bag of corn. Get you your bag of peas. Get your bag of peas and carrots. Get your bag of green beans. Bags of spinach, whatever it is, get that, okay? You can get the Melodies, the basic one. Another favorite of ours is the broccoli. It's broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots all together. That bag you could typically get really, really big, and those are cheap still, okay? So get those. We like the Costco one. We like the basic store one, right? At Walmart, whatever, but get that big bag, okay? And then just stockpile those. So frozen vegetables are cheap. Some individual stuff that I just want to highlight that's cheap, that's kind of in the fruits and vegetables area is cabbage is specifically very, very cheap. So if you're trying to make meals, you're trying to make stuff last, very versatile, right? There's cold options to use for it. There's warm options. It stretches, it's delicious, and it's super cheap. Another one is carrots. Carrots, very filling, very good to be added to all types of stews, aside for cooking, but carrots are very, very good, and they're hearty, okay? So if we talk about stuff lasting, carrots, if you get real carrots, I'm not talking about those fancy ones that are already cut all fancy and shaped and they're in the bag. I'm not talking about those. Those are going to go bad quick. I'm talking about your old school bag that's like $1.20 of like 2 pounds of carrots, and they're long and they're ugly, right? Those are the carrots that I want you to get. Those will go far. You can preserve those if you want to, but those are fantastic if your family eats carrots. You know, you can salt, pepper, little bit of olive oil, throw them in the oven. You can boil them. You can throw them in a stew. Just super, super delicious. You can have a snack with a little bit of ranch or something on the side. Fantastic food, and still super, super cheap in the store, okay? Next thing I have in that area is bananas. Specifically, if we talk about fruits, you know, we love blueberries, but blueberries are expensive. But we love, man, we're some blueberry heads. But I know that, so I'm trying to plan for that. Having blueberry bushes and being able to provide that for my family. Having that freeze-dried, having it in options that are on the shelf for later. Because, baby, that is not a cheap, you know, fruit. Bananas are, okay? Bananas are still fairly decent. Bananas, too, out of all the fruits that we buy, are not going bad within 24 hours, right? They're lasting a few days, the normal type of frame for bananas. I always try to get them green or close to not quite yellow, right? That's the best way to make them last longer, but cheap, cheap, cheap bananas. And super filling, great snack. You know, it's a must-have fruit that's cheap. And then, let's see, is this the last thing I have? Yep, I'm down to the last thing. Number 30 is crackers. So you think about snacky type foods, you know, we're not talking about, you know, there's some more expensive stuff like nuts or chips even, or, you know, cookies, just other little snacky things. Crackers are amazing, okay? Crackers you can get cheap. Get them when they're on sale, even better. But even when they're not on sale, you can get a lot. You can get stuff that has stuff inside of it, peanut butter, right, honey, whatever, cheese, right? But you can get regular crackers, crackers for soup. Crackers are great for holistic options, not holistic options, for sickness, right? So there's certain foods that I think of stockpiling when I think of medicine and medical, and when somebody's sick, stuff like teas, stuff like soups, broths. Crackers is one of those things that I'm always thinking about. Oyster crackers, Ritz crackers. Basically, crackers are cheap. It's a cheap snack. It can be preserved, okay, and put in a jar so that it will last longer. And I think that it's an easy snack that's still cheap and affordable. If you like popcorn, popcorn's another one. Super cheap to buy, super easy to make. A little bit of oil in a pan, pop it up, right? If you're talking about saving money, these are the foods that you want to get. A lot of these foods, like I said at the beginning, are versatile. Let's talk about some tips. Tips are hitting the sales, watching the flyers. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of money. Maybe you don't go and buy all the food all at once. You get paid on the first, you go and spend all your food budget on that day. Wait, okay? Wait, because there's another, remember, a week later, there's another flyer. So maybe you don't spend all your money on that first week. Maybe only buy half the stuff or only the stuff for that week, and then concentrate on the next week. So sales, pay attention to flyers, get stuff when it's on sale. I buy around sales. That's what a lot of people do as well. Don't sleep on generic. Get the generics. Get your head out of the, I have to have a certain kind, I have to have a certain brand, whatever. It's one thing if it's a snack or it's just something that you're just, I have to have that, then fine. But don't sleep on generic. Generic is the same food, you guys. So just Get your generic. Like I said, the Rotel, you get the other can, it's 88 cents opposed to, $1.30 for the Rotel. Okay. Get the generic refried beans under $1 opposed to $1.58 to get that name brand kind. Okay. So be smart about your money and make it stretch, and don't sleep on generic. Next thing is buy and then preserve it. Get it, preserve it. If you're buying in bulk, buy in bulk. If the price is better, buy in bulk and then preserve it, right? Make smart decisions to be able to eat, continue to eat, but then also preserve it, right? Don't sleep on food banks, right? If you need help, do not have any shame in going to food banks. A lot of times too, food banks, when we first got back, my sister here, her ex was bringing her to provide for her and the boys, was bringing her boxes once a week or whatever from the food bank. And so when we first got back, there was a couple times he brought a big box and it was full of fruits and vegetables, full, like whole big bag of onions, whole huge bag of garlic, right? Like I had to preserve some of that stuff because you couldn't eat it fast enough, right? But it was delicious. It wasn't a box of like a bunch of canned food. It was a lot of your local farmers that get rid of stuff or donate stuff, okay? So do not sleep on that, okay? Do not sleep on that. And if you need the help, you better be taking your butt to a food bank, okay? We live near to this place that hands out food, and the lines are around the block all the time, right? It's crazy, right? So don't sleep on that. Make sure that you're taking care of your family and don't have too much pride in it. And then grow it, obviously, right? So things that I know that we like, trying to continue to grow those things, whether it has a medicinal purpose, whether it's a food item, but continuing to grow stuff, continue. I just replanted some more garlic. I'm about to plant some more onions. I just processed all the potatoes and I replanted new potatoes. Here in the next week or so, we're going to process the sweet potatoes. I think I'm going to make dog treats out of them. And then we're going to replant because I've already got a bunch of slips ready to go. So we're just going to keep it going, right? The things that you eat, plant those things. If you know you love garlic in your family, plant tons of garlic. Plant it in your house, okay? But get it going, okay? Fruits that you want. Yes, fruit trees take a while, but you can go to a nursery and get stuff that's already producing fruit. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but get that. Get it in the ground. Get it planted. The best time to plant trees is right now in the fall. We're almost getting to the point where it's too far, but fall time is the best time to plant trees. But get those fruit trees. You need to remember about pollination. Some stuff is self-pollinating, but make sure you have a male, female. Talk to your nursery if you need help with that. Google online. It's at your fingertips. But ensure that you're getting the stuff started, right? And go from there. I'm super excited to be able to share this stuff with you. You guys know I really, really like to cook, and I am a firm believer and a fan of cheap stuff, cheap foods, cheap staples, basics. I do believe in taking regular food and just making a meal with it. I do believe in just throwing stuff together. I'm a big pot and stew, and I'm just going to throw some stuff together and make it. That's me. But you don't have to be that way to take advantage of this cheap stuff. Get this stuff and start stockpiling this stuff. This is cheap, so stock cheap, right? And get it because it's versatile. There's so many meals. And then, if you're a social media person, you know that I go to TikTok sometimes for a meal idea. I'll just be like, oh, what's a meal that I can make with some ground sausage, right? Just I want something new. And I'll go in there, all types of stuff will pop up. And I might not even use what I saw them use it for, right? The actual recipe that they had, but it gives me an idea to go, to the side and make my own stuff, okay? Or it gives me an idea of something like, oh, I have that. Okay, I'll make that, right? So don't sleep on the internet while we have it. Come up with new meals. And this stuff, you Googling on YouTube, Great Depression meals, or getting that book by Clara, right? Get you your cookbooks and start cooking and learn your Great Depression meals, your high inflation type meals, your cheap meals, okay? You know how many meals you can make with just one large potato that will make meals for a whole family just by the stuff that you add to that and make it into a pot of soup. Amazing, okay? So maybe I'll start bringing you guys some stuff. I've had a couple people ask me, so I might start showing you guys when I'm making dinner what I'm throwing together. Because I honestly sometimes just throw it together, okay? I'm not really one for measuring, but if you can just see how I do it, then maybe it will help you, and bolster you to just, it's not that hard to just kind of throw stuff together, okay? It's hard to mess up some stuff when you're just working with basic foods, okay? So I hope you guys are well. I hope you enjoyed this list of 30, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next video. Take care.